Most people are trapped into a financial cycle that is designed to keep them working forever. But the top 5% play by a completely different set of rules. In this video, I'm breaking down the 3 levels of money management to paycheck survival to building real wealth. If you're stuck trading time for money, ready to learn passive income secrets, stick around. This could change how you think about money. So the money secrets of the poor, the middle class, and the wealthy are very, very different. I would know because I started on the poor side, just like probably some of you. So in the very beginning, when we're all trading our time for money, I call it poor habits. You must work to pay things like for rent and maybe your car and of course food, those kinds of things. You have to cover those expenses. And so over here on the left side, you're working 40, 50, 60, maybe even more hours per week. Some of you are even working multiple jobs just to try to be able to cover your expenses. Now, that's what we call active income. In other words, you're trading your time for money. Physically have to show up somewhere to get a paycheck. These people are in the most vulnerable position because they are subject to things like inflation and savings rates. And of course, they typically don't have a lot of money left over to invest because they're just trying to tread water. This is where I started. This is where a lot of people start. Of course, the difference between poor habits and middle class habits are very slight. We're all in the exact same sandbox. We make money, we spend money, maybe we invest money, and we all pay tax. The question is, how do you do it? So the key thing here is the bank account. So the poor have a personal bank account, and inside of that bank account, all their money goes into it and all their personal expenses come out. So just like so many of us that work butts off and work hard, all our active money goes into our personal bank accounts, and all of that covers our personal expenses, and maybe we have income left over. Most of the people in this category do not invest because they need a safety net in the event some of their active income is not consistent. So what we find here is that people have to work harder, get second jobs, and all of their money goes into the bank accounts. And of course, their personal expenses take up most of their money. And then when they start to maybe make a little bit more money, what they end up doing is they start to upgrade things like their cars or go on a vacation or whatever it might be. But these people typically are just treading water. The difference between this habit and the middle class, which is the next category, is not that much. The interesting thing is that we all start right here in this category. Most of us did not come from a lot of money. If you want to learn how to get rich, you got to study the habits of the rich. So the next category is the middle class. And this, of course, is the next progression for most of us. And this is exactly the progression that I went through. I started to make more money simply by working more, by working weekends, working evenings, and working a lot. But I was still working for someone else in the form of a W-2. And that, of course, was still active income, which means that I had to show up somewhere to get a paycheck. I was only as good as the hours I worked or the pay that I was getting. I was completely vulnerable to the success of that particular employer. But then a wealth manager tapped me on the shoulder. He said, you need to start investing in passive income. And that's when I started investing in things like gold and stocks and those kinds of things. And it takes a while to get to this point. Even when I was there, I did not completely understand on what I was investing and why it was working. I was simply turning my money over to a third party. So that's the natural progression, is turning your money over to a financial planner or a wealth manager to buy things like stocks and gold and crypto and all of those things that might be available from a passive income strategy. From there, a lot of people in the middle class, a side hustle or a second business. Now, you don't necessarily have to quit your job in order to do this. A lot of people in this situation create second and third sources of income, which I highly recommend, because what you want is you want an active business that's producing passive income. So what you want is to create here a business bank account. This is pro tip number 1. First, when you start making money, you turn it over to a wealth manager and you don't really know what they're doing with it. But second, you start to realize that the only way for you to get ahead is to create a second or third source of income through some kind of active business that produces passive income. Now, that can be as simple as buying a duplex and renting it out and having $500 to $1,000 a month in passive income, and then using the tax strategies that are available to you to be able to reduce your taxable income. Or it could be something that's a little more hands-on, like a business that actually requires people to be employed, and you're selling something. It doesn't really matter what it is, but it's active and it produces passive income, hopefully. But the key thing here is the middle class is now starting to understand that they can now open business bank accounts. And business bank accounts are very different than a personal bank account. So with a business bank account, there are business expenses that you can legally run through your business. Things like your car or percentage of your car and gas going to and from, and childcare expenses and personal development. You can now start to take things that you might be paying for personally and legally run them through your business. Now, of course, you need to check on this. The tax laws are always changing. You need a qualified CPA to be able to tell you what you can and can't do. But once you have a business bank account, there's a lot of things you could do legally to run through here, which now, of course, you have another option rather than running everything through your personal bank account. So many of you are already doing this, and it might look something like this. You have lots of different kinds of active income. Maybe you have 2 or 3 jobs, and maybe you even have some passive income, and they go into your business bank accounts. And you could have 2, 3, 4 of these. And from there, you have your business expenses. And over here, you, of course, got your home office, you have your internet, you have your gas, you have your mobile phone, you have your health insurance, your childcare, your personal development expenses. These are all things that you can do to help grow your business because you're employing people, and the tax laws give you the ability to be able to write things off. And then what happens is the passive money that comes out of these accounts goes into your personal bank account. And of course, you pay your personal expenses, and then you have, hopefully, you're net positive here and you have more money to invest in maybe another business or maybe another piece of real estate or gold, silver, crypto, stocks. It doesn't really matter, but you now are in control because you have businesses producing income for you, as opposed to you just working actively and walking in and going to a job each and every day and relying on how many hours you work or how much you make per hour or your salary or whatever it might be. And certainly you're not relying on the success of some other company that provides you that W-2 income. You're now relying on yourself. So in this particular case, you're starting to bet on yourself. You're starting to invest on yourself through starting businesses that generate passive income. Now, eventually, where we all can end up, and certainly this is where I ended up after I started studying the habits of the wealthy, they have a choice to work, where in the other 2 categories, the poor and the middle class, they have to work. But what I've realized from the wealthy is that most people work 20 to 30 hours a week because they have the ability to do that. They're financially free at this point. So in other words, money is not a claim on their time. They use money to generate more passive income. So the strategy of the wealthy is to entirely focus on passive income. So they have multiple bank accounts, as many as 6, 7, 8. I personally have over 10 different businesses that provide passive income each and every month. I also have a W-2 job, which is the company that I own, but I do take a small salary out of that company. One of these businesses, like my company, MC Companies, I actually don't even take a paycheck. I have no active income coming out of my company. What I do is I survive completely based on the passive income of the company. In other words, I take money out of MC Companies based on how it's doing, and I don't do it in the form of a paycheck. I do it in the form of passive income. Now, I do that with our construction company, with our development company. I do that with our internet company. I do that with my publishing company. I do that with McElroy.com. All of those different businesses all produce passive income. We have a collections company. We have some contractor companies. We have all these different things that we have formed over time that generate passive income. And from the passive income, I take an owner distribution. It's very different. But what's interesting is after I pay all the business expenses from those companies, then I can now invest that back into more businesses or to grow my current business. Or I could just take it personally here in my own personal bank account. But like all of you, all my personal expenses, the ones that are allowable through the IRS, you got to make sure that you don't run your personal expenses through the business. You're going to want to check with a qualified CPA or your tax person to make sure that you're doing the strategy correctly. I'll give you an example. I just flew this weekend on a jet with my kids to a personal development seminar called Goal Strategies put on by the real estate guys. And I wanted my kids to set their goals for 2025. And so we did that, but I spoke there. And I didn't get paid, but I actually ended up speaking there. And before that, we had our mastermind, which is the collective inner circle, which of course is another one of the businesses. And so the company, the collective mastermind, paid for me to go, and I attended the goals retreat, and I flew back, all generated by the business. I was able to pass through most of my business expenses for that entire trip, this whole week, through the companies that I'm managing, because I had to be there as a partner to run the event. So there's all kinds of publications that say most wealthy people have at least 7 different income strategies. And of course, all those go into these different business accounts. And of course, they pay these different business expenses. The one thing I do want to point out is the poor almost has no tax strategies. I certainly didn't, because I was just trying to survive. The middle class has some, but of course they're turning their money generally over to a financial planner or a wealth manager, and they're now not even taking an active role in their own investing. They're turning it over to somebody else, where the wealthy is actually taking a very active role in their own investing and how things are being done. So the tax strategies really come into play. And of course, you guys all know that I started with real estate investing, and I started with a single family house. So if you're interested in the single family due diligence checklist, just click on the link here. You can have that for free. But that is one of the strategies. And when you buy that house, you're going to set up a business account. You're going to rent it. You're going to have passive income, which is exactly what you want, which is going to funnel right back into being able to pay for your expenses and have enough cash flow to be financially free. There's lots of other things you can do, and these are just some of the strategies that I have. So I do have money in retirement plans. I have cash. I have stocks, I have crypto, I have gold. And of course, I am heavy in real estate, but I also have a number of businesses as well that produce passive income. The key is when one ball falls, and it will, then you have the others propping it up. That's why we like to have at least 7 income streams at all times, because not all 7 are producing cash at all times. Sometimes they're shrinking, sometimes they're growing, sometimes you lose a big client, sometimes the market just changes. All this really does is give you diversification and the passive income strategy that makes you not rely on that active income, which comes from that paycheck, which puts you in the worst position ever. So while this might be the high watermark for a lot of you, just understand that even I started with just one paycheck from an employer, and I just started working more and more and more. So the system that I just rolled out for you is exactly what I did. It's exactly what you could do, because you're not going to be able to generate 7 incomes overnight, but you do have to learn what the market wants and what businesses that you can create. And that could be all around real estate, like how I started. But now, of course, I have real estate, I have businesses, I have gold, I have crypto, I have money in retirement, I have a lot of cash, I've got stocks, I've got all those kinds of things. And it's super confusing. This is all super confusing, because now I have lots of balls in the air. But as gold goes up and down, as businesses go up and down, as real estate markets go up and down, I'm diversified, but I still have passive income coming in from all these businesses at all times. And what if I told you the biggest difference between rich and poor is not how much money they have? In this next video, I break down 5 key strategies the wealthy use to build and protect their wealth. And more importantly, how you can start to apply them today. You can watch that video here.